Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be organizing Nemesis Lockdown, designed by Adam Kwapinski and published by Awaken Realms. Now this is a fully sleeved copy of the game with no lid lift that is designed to get gameplay started as soon as possible, as well as keep everything protected. We also incorporate the Nemesis Lockdown stretch goals box in the organization system, but we do move a lot of components from this secondary box into the main game box because you'll be using them in every mode of the game, not just when you incorporate the Cythrid faction. I also want to mention that we use the architect tubes here to store the game mat for the game. You simply screw that lid off and inside you'll store the mat. And then I also really like that you can screw off this plastic portion and then affix a label to the top, maybe just a picture of that game box cover. And that way you're able to see and differentiate which tube goes to which game. So I'll leave a link in the description below for these architect tubes. All that being said, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help this channel grow. Let's get started organizing Nemesis Lockdown. First off, we lift the lid here and you'll see that draped on top will have the rulebook for the game. Now underneath the rulebook, you'll have the reference sheets for your rules summary as well as your different rooms. You'll want to make sure that these are here because you will reference them often. Underneath that, we have the cardboard version of the game board. And then you have our top plastic organizer. First off, we have a Nemesis bag that's going to be storing all of your Intruder tokens. You'll have coin capsules to keep them protected, and that way you're not sure what you're actually pulling from the bag. Now, some of these will have a little bit of rough edges, so if you do see that, get an X-Acto knife and trim it down. But you'll have all of your different tokens in here in their coin capsules. I'll leave a link in the description below for the different coin capsules we use. We have two different sizes here, large and small. You'll be using a lot of the small ones for various components, but these large ones are going to be generally used for that Intruder bag. So that's the Intruder bag with all of the Nightstalker tokens inside. To the left, you're going to have your bag of cards that you're not always going to need. In particular, these are the crossover cards if you decide to use the main Nemesis characters in the game, as well as the additional action cards for if you decide to play with the pilot, or if you're using the event cards from the main Nemesis game. So you'll put these in this bag, and honestly, you'll probably never take this out if you're not combining the two games, but when you do decide to combine them, they're here for that. We've got a silica gel packet in here for freshness. In the upper left section here, we have the Contamination card scanner, as well as a reminder for the infection procedure. We also have the elevator token that you'll put to the side of the board. And then lastly, we have all of these large cardboard components, including the lab where you track your knowledge and all of the different character boards. So you'll pass those out to the players based on the character that they've drafted. And that's everything in this upper plastic tray. Let's go ahead and remove it. And now we get to the main resource tray. You're just going to take this out and place it near a central location on the table because you're going to be pulling out components from this as you play the game. It's nice to have everything organized and ready to go so it's not a fiddly setup during gameplay. You're not having to open up a bunch of bags. This is extremely useful. In this bottom left section, you're going to have your large components from the stretch goals box. These replace the cardboard tokens, so as you'll see, they'll be removed. So you have your first player marker and your Rover marker. Those will go in this bottom left section with a silica gel packet. Now, the reason they're here is because the plastic tray actually has a larger space for those large tokens, so they're not going to get crushed or damaged. So make sure they're in that bottom left corner for that Rover and first player marker. Next to that, we have two compartments that are just full of the 3D doors. Once again, you're going to replace your cardboard components with these. So we have 3 in this section, 4 in this section, and then 4 in this section, meaning that these 3 wells are just full of the 3D door tokens. We also have the main gate token that's replaced the cardboard version, and you'll place that on top of the noise markers. This will get set up at the beginning of the game, so you'll just remove it and place it where it goes on the board. Next to that, you'll have all of your ammo tokens, your red markers, as well as your clear markers for a variety of things, like slime and the signal. In this bottom right section, we have all of our orange exploration tokens for the surface of Mars. You'll only use these when you're playing on the backside of Mars. We have these in those smaller coin capsules, that way you're just never sure what's underneath them. We also have all of the knowledge tokens for the different players in this section. You'll only pull out the ones that you're using for specific colors, so you can go ahead and assign those to the knowledge track appropriately. And the last two components we have in here are the corpse tokens for when characters die during the game, as well as the exploration die. So this is the noise die for the outside if you're playing that specific mode. Up next, we have the CSS capsule tokens. These are all in coin capsules, the large ones, and you'll shuffle these up and randomly assign them onto the event track appropriately. To the left of that, we have all of the dice in the game, as well as your tokens for the time track, and then any additional tokens that may go onto that time track as the game plays. So you'll just have those in a stack here because you will need access to them. That brings us to this top section. In this main section here, we have all of your Malfunction as well as your Flame tokens. Once again, if you do run out of these to place onto the board, then the ship will explode when you need to place one. So these are all in just that area as the danger zone. On this right side here, in these smaller coin capsules, we have all of the Intruder corpses, and they're stacked with all of your life markers for the Intruders as well. We have these black ones that are going to be for your larger health enemies, as well as these red ones for the smaller health enemies. So you'll just stack them appropriately here. I like to keep a black one in this top section, because that way you know exactly where they are when you do experience a larger creature. And then we put all of the Intruder coin capsules in here, because there is that spot where you can put your finger in and take them out. So I really like having them in these two specific columns. In this last section here, we have our Contingency tokens as well as our Power tokens. You'll stack them in here because you'll need them for the setup of every game. You'll just pull them out and assign them appropriately. You'll then have all of your Exploration tokens that you'll be using to populate the rooms. Just make sure you shuffle them up randomly at the end of every game before you put them up, and now you just simply grab a stack and allocate them to the rooms appropriately. And the last component here is a 3D printed upgrade for the egg tokens in the game. They are cardboard, so if you decide to use those, just make sure you put them into this place instead. But we do have a 3D printed component upgrade here. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get some of these yourself. And that's everything in this main tray. Let's go ahead and move it to the side for right now. That leads us to our next tray, which is going to hold a lot of the miniatures as well as the player card racks. So let's take a look inside and see what's here. So first off, we have all of the different player card holders. They're numbered for the player that you are. You'll just place them outward like so and put your mini cards on them. So you can just leave them in here and take them based on the player count. You also have your small Larva tokens in here. We do have the wash here, the nice sun drop paint, so they are protected and that paint wash is not going to get ruined. I really like these and they fit nice and snug inside of these small areas. We also have all of the bases for the players based on who you decide to choose. You can affix these on here, but they are going to be a little snug when you go to return them. So just a heads up, it is pretty simple and straightforward to leave them off. That way you don't have any issues pulling these miniatures out. The last miniatures we have here are the crew miniatures, as well as some of the creepers, as well as some of the adult Nightstalkers. And that brings us to the bottom section, which you'll pretty much just leave in the box for the remainder of your time with this game. So first off, we have all of these hexagonal tiles, all the rooms. You'll have your 3 special rooms that you'll keep separate, and then all of your 1s and 2s. You'll shuffle them up and place them appropriately on their spots on the board. We then have the remainder of our Nightstalker miniatures with our breeders, as well as our adults, and then lastly, our queen. You gotta love the paint job on these. They look pretty spectacular in all of their sun-dropped glory. I mean, just look at them. Terrifying. I love the way this queen looks, and you can see all the eggs on the bottom there. Super creepy. Love it. And that brings us to our card section. We have 2 sizes of cards in this game. First off, we have the Ultra Pro standard size sleeves. We use these for all of your action cards, event cards, your larger cards. I'll leave a link in the description below for both of the sleeves that I talk about here. For the small sleeves, we use mini European board game size sleeves. We use the Game Plus brand, but there's a lot of great options, including Gamegenic and Titan Shield. You're going to divide your small cards into 2 specific sections. You first have this smaller section that's going to hold all of your crafted items, as well as your quest items for the different characters, and then lastly, the different weaknesses for the Nightstalker. So that will all go in that middle section here. In the left section here, you'll have the remainder of your cards in the form of the item decks. You'll have the tools, the weapons, and then the medical supplies. And that brings us to the standard sized cards. In this left section here, you'll have all of your reference cards, as well as your pass and player turn cards, which character you are, the character draft cards, the objective cards, and those will all be here in that first section on the left. You're pretty much going to need these every game. We'll then go to the character-specific action decks here in this middle section, as well as your solo co-op objectives, as well if you're playing that advanced mode and you need the Mars surface cards. So these you're not going to necessarily need all of them every game you play. And that brings us to the right side here. You'll need these every game cards, including the computer actions, your Nightstalker attack cards, your event cards for the Nightstalkers, your action cards, which are actually Contaminations, and then lastly, your serious wound cards. So those will all be in this bottom right section. And that's everything in the bottom section here, and everything that's going to be stored in that core box. Let's go ahead and pack it up. On the bottom right, we'll put those always used cards for the standard size cards. We'll then put those sometimes used cards next with the player decks, the Mars surface cards, and the solo objectives. And then we'll put the always used reference cards and main game objectives. We'll then take the small cards with all of your personal missions, the Nightstalker weaknesses, as well as the crafted items. And then your 3 item deck stacks that are going to go on this far left side. We'll then place our hexagonal tiles on this left side here with those 3 special rooms separated, and then we'll place our miniatures in their appropriate spots based on which ones you summon during the game. We'll then place our miniatures tray that's got the different player card holders as well as your character miniatures. We'll then take our large tray of resources that you're going to be pulling from during the game. Make sure to put those power tokens as well as those contingency tokens in the upper left here, as well as any additional eggs. Our main gate token on top of these noise markers, our exploration tokens with the eggs and contingency tokens, our character corpses, as well as your different science markers, your surface markers, and then lastly, your surface die. Our CSS tokens, and then all of our could appear on the event track and definitely starts on the event track. And that's everything in this main tray. Let's close that lid up. Then we'll place all of the character boards and the lab boards in this upper left section. Our contamination card scanner and our elevator token, a silica gel packet, and then our cards we won't use unless we're doing the combination games. And lastly, to fill up this large area, our Nightstalker tokens in the Nemesis bag. We'll then place the game board on top of that, as well as the different rules references, and then the main game rulebook. And that is organizing Nemesis Lockdown. If you have any questions about what you saw here in this base box, please let me know down in the comments below. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into that stretch goals box. So first off, we'll lift off the lid of the stretch goals box, and inside you'll see that we have the Untold Stories book, as well as the rulebook for all of the stretch goal components. We'll then have all of the large cardboard components needed. This is the laboratory board for the Cythrids, as well as the Carnomorphs, and then as well as the Voidseeders. Very, very cool. We then have this circular ring for that Cythrid expansion, and then a plastic tray on top. You're going to simply lift this off, and it's going to hold all of your Intruder tokens for the Cythrids. Now, these are going to be in those smaller coin capsules, as well as our creepy, nasty green fungus tokens. Underneath that, we're going to pretty much keep the Cythrid where they started in this component organizer, with all of our small miniatures here, and then our large queen, and then the different large square spores. And you got these creepy, nasty green fungal tokens. Disgusting. But those are going to be all on that left side. And on this right side, we're going to have a plastic bag that has all of your replaced components. As I mentioned before, you'll have the doors and the first player marker, the rover, the gate, all that stuff will be replaced. But if you decide to keep these for some reason, you could shove them into this right section here, just nice and snug. Up next, we have some tokens that are specific for the crossover content. We have the Voidseeder tokens for exploration, as well as the knowledge token for the medic character, Special Pink. And then we have all of your tokens for the Untold Stories modules. Once again, if you decide to use these, you can put them in tokens, but they are a little bit on the small side, but you'll need specific ones for each of the missions that you play. We then have our small card sleeves for that crossover content from the original game stretch goal box, as well as your Cythrid weaknesses, and then our objective for the medic character. Very, very cool. And that brings us to the last section here, which is just going to be holding all of your standard sized encounter cards. Now, there's no dividers or anything special here, but these are basically going to contain all of your action cards for the different characters, as well as your Voidseeder events that are specific to the new expansion, your new objectives, your new references for the Voidseeders and Carnomorphs. This is just a way that you can cross over all of your Nemesis content. It also is going to have all of your new stuff for the Cythrids encounter, their special attack cards, pretty much everything that relates to these new components is going to be in here. So there's no specific dividers here, so just put them all in that bottom right section. And that's everything inside of the stretch goals box. Let's go ahead and pack it up. So first off, we'll put those standard size cards in this right section. We'll then place our smaller cards here in this tiny section. All of your Untold Stories 3 components in this smaller section here. And then your Medic and Voidseeder tokens here in this section. Once again, you'll be using those smaller coin capsules to fit them. We'll then take the plastic tray and put it on top of these. We'll then place that circular disc for the Cythrid expansion, as well as the components for the Voidseeders, Carnomorphs, and Cythrids for the laboratory. We'll put our rulebook on top, our Untold Stories, and that is organizing the stretch goals box for Nemesis Lockdown. If you have any questions about what you saw here, please let me know down in the comments below, whether it be for the core game, Nemesis Lockdown, the stretch goals, or both, or how we mix and match the components from both. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you think, or any questions you may have. And I'll mention one more time, links in the description below for any of the things we use to help organize this game. How do you organize your copy of Nemesis Lockdown? What do you think of the game? Is this an improvement on the original? Do you combine the stretch goal box into the base game box, or do you keep them separate like we do? What do you think about the coin capsules? Is it a bit too much? I'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong.